one thing I seriously hate are liars. So like, he better not be one. Before, hopefully this is good. You know we gotta up the quality. Okay, 1080p.
Every good story has a villain. Because the one thing more enjoyable than watching a hero win is watching a hero win and the villain dying a horrible death. For example, Kung Fu Panda, Po becomes a dragon warrior and Tai Lung gets absolutely obliterated from existence. The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible.
Why they just had to show her caked up? Like, I'm not even trying to be that guy, but like, that's OD.
Gets his family back, and Syndrome gets sucked into a literal jet engine. Tarzan? Even Despicable Me, where Gru himself is a villain, but since Vector is also a villain and also a nerd, he gets stranded with one tank of oxygen on the literal moon. But
I ain't gonna lie, y'all can argue with me, Gru is not really a villain. He's like a Deadpool type of guy. He had heart though, like he wasn't just pure heartless villain.
On rare occasions, instead of finding myself celebrating the villain's misfortune, I find myself thinking, wait, he did nothing wrong. For example, Griffith.
No. Yo, there's no way. He actually just said that. The man of evil himself. No, let me listen to what he has to say.
It was just a joke. I'm joking. Put down the gun, Kyle. Put down the gun. Getting his hair pulled by a rat that came from the sewers, and also lets that rat cook food for him, which at first I thought, fine, everybody has their own thing, I'm not here to king shame, but the rat's like 2 years old. But the thing is, it doesn't end there, because this guy works in a 2 Michelin star restaurant, and he secretly lets the rat cook for unknowing victims. Which, need I remind you that rats transmit a plethora of diseases, including salmonella, leptospirosis, and even the damn Black Plague, which,
I've never heard of that.
If you don't know, killed like 50% of Europe, which basically means rats Thanos snapped Europe. Which is where our villain comes into the story, because he's the only sensible person in this movie.
He's the only sane person, let's say that.
And he says, hell no, kill it! Which is maybe a bit extreme, but he's doing it to protect his customers. But when he tries to warn other people, no one believes him. So he does the most sensible thing in this scenario and tries to report it to the health securities. But even they don't believe him. And when he finally discovers the kitchen full of rats, they tie him up and throw him.
Y'all know what he could have did? He could have got a flamethrower, ran through that, doing this. Like, where are they gonna go? Obliterated instantly.
Into the pantry, which, knowing rats, that is no accident. They probably want to eat him, or worse, serve him to customers. Also, side note, the granny in this is badass. Because if I had a rat infestation in my house, I'll probably put in some traps and go on a holiday. And if that doesn't work, I'm burning the house down. But Granny Rambo has her own method. I mean, look at this shot. I don't like to use this term, but she's literally aura farming. And also, if a movie comes out of her fighting the granny from Madagascar, you better believe I'm watching it.
Finally, worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
And I haven't really mastered transitioning from one scene to another, so Cube. And for the next film, I want to talk about Over the Hedge, because it doesn't have one villain, it doesn't have 2 villains, it has 3 villains. And the first of them being Vincent the Bear, who is low-key my spirit animal, because he spends his days living out of his man cave, which is literally a cave, and hibernates for half a year. And for when he comes out of hibernation, he prepared a pile of munchies, which will make a college dorm filled with stoners jealous. And here's this dickhead who's kinda the main character of this story, by the way, trying to steal his stash, which I think we can all agree is disrespectful on another level. You don't steal another man's snack stash. And also is greedy because he's not gonna finish the whole thing. And you wanna know how greedy the main character is? Because he could have just got away with the stash because the bear was sleeping, but he decided that's not enough. This greedy bastard sees the bear sleeping with a can of Pringles, so he tries to steal that too. And it may have been understandable if it was for a can of Pringles, you know, because they slap, but he did it for a can of Spuddies. And by doing that, he wakes up the bear, who apparently is woken up a week early, which, if I'm woken up 10 minutes early, I'm cursing the person that did it for the rest of the day. So not only has he woken him up a week early, the trolley filled with snacks ends up getting destroyed. So, Vincent the bear wants to kill him, understandable. But this thief convinces the bear that if he gives him a week, he'll get his whole stash back, including the blue cooler and the red wagon, which low-key kinda looks fly. And I have to admit that I may have been wrong for criticizing the thief for stealing the kind of Spuddies.
I want my Spuddies. I love those things, because we're Spuddy. Enough just isn't enough.
Not gonna lie, now I want to try some Spuddies. So, Vincent lets him go, which so far isn't very villainy behavior if you ask me. And so the thief, who I'm supposedly supposed to root for, goes on a journey to ruin everybody else's life. Because the first thing he does is go to a peaceful colony and get them hooked up on snacks. And he does the whole, there's plenty of more where that came from, whole speech.
Is the altar where they worship food?
So he convinces them to help him steal all the food. But to carry all the food, he first needs the red trolley.
The flying red trolley.
And where would our so-called hero get it from? That's right, a couple of innocent Girl Scouts.
Shade.
And he does it by making a squirrel look like he has rabies and scaring the girls away, which I think is a very important moment in this plot for later, because their mother doesn't take them seriously, but now enters our second villain, Karen. She thinks it may be the beginning of a big issue. And you know what big issues causes?
Lowering our property values?
Which is just the beginning of the list of things that would drive her over the edge.
He said it! He said it!
And make her turn into the so-called main villain. Anyways, the wild animals go on a tirade of stealing food, which slowly builds to a boiling point when, to get the blue cooler for Vincent, the thief gets a possum to play dead so he can steal the cooler. Which is when Karen makes his second good point.
You see, this is exactly why I call the exterminator, to kill them before they get hurt like this.
And so comes in the fifth villain.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where
The Verminator. Da, 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 da. And does he live up to his glorious name? Yes, he does. And the way he handles the Karen is legendary.
Stand down, sister.
Which so far, Karen did nothing wrong. All she did so far is bring in an exterminator because her neighborhood is filled with wild animals, including one with rabies. Oh, and the third villain is the Verminator. So yeah, so far, none of them did anything wrong, but can you guess who proceeds to do something wrong? That's right, the so-called hero. Because he convinced the wild animals to help him steal all the food so they could have it, but now that the stash is full, he can steal it. Which doesn't end well, because after a chase, this happens.
Oh my god.
So now that the wild animals almost kill the Karen and destroy her car, she decides enough is enough and gets the Verminator to install the D-Pelter Turbo, which apparently is illegal in every state except for Texas, according to the movie.
As it is illegal in every state.
But the way he says it with pride makes me think he's from Texas. But while he's not in Texas now, so he technically broke the law, does that make him a villain? And can we judge the Karen who her neighborhood is filled with wild animals and her car was destroyed and she almost lost her life? Can we actually blame her? And it doesn't end there, because the thief, who happens to be a raccoon, but he's so sly he should be a fox, somehow convinces the wild animals to help him rebuild the stash, but this time directly from Karen's house. Which doesn't make any sense, because why would you steal from the one house stacked with traps other than to fuck with the Karen? Anyways, it goes terribly wrong, because even though they manage to steal the stash, they get caught by the Verminator.
Buenos dias.
Except for the thief, who manages to get away with the stash. But after Vincent finally gets his stash back, Mr. Thief decides to have a moment of conscience and use the new stash to save the wild animals, destroying it in the process. I can't with this. I'm so annoyed for Vincent. Like, this poor guy gets his hope up and then destroyed it straight away. So Vincent decides to stand on business and chase after them, which ends up with the Verminator's awesome truck being destroyed by flying into the Karen's house, which rightfully so makes her lose her shit. And she tries to kill the wild animals with a weed hacker. And the Verminator, who just got his truck destroyed by the bear, decides to use the energy dagger from Halo to attack the bear. But then the squirrel, who faked to have rabies, and his whole shtick is that he talks really fast, pulls a Quicksilver move 10 years before Quicksilver did it.
He copied my whole fucking flow! Word for word, bar for bar!
And set the D-Pelter Turbo to maximum capacity and aims it at our three poor so-called villains. Which gets them arrested and brings on this legendary meme.
I did not know this clip was from this movie. I am baffled.
Anyways, Page Peel. Sid from Toy Story is just a kid with undiagnosed autism, who is first introduced to us for attaching a toy soldier to a firecracker. That's not evil, that's creative. And before you start wagging your finger at me, let me ask you, how many hours have you spent watching those hydraulic press videos destroying everything including toys? Anyways, the next time we see Sid the villain is when he wins Woody and Buzz Lightyear from a claw machine. Do you know what people tend to be good at claw machines? Autistic people.
Buster's newfound skills did not involve lowering Jeff.
Not only that, he also wins a squeaky toy, which he ends up giving to his dog, which for some reason is portrayed as evil. Then we see his room and find out his weird hobby, which is to disassemble toys and reattach them to other toys, which some of them admittedly are kind of creepy, which makes people say he has serial killer vibes. But some of them are kind of cute, like this pterodactyl with a dress that he custom made for his sister.
That shit is not cute.
Or this jack-in-a-box hand that waves high when opened. Or this frog with wheels. And let's not forget Muscle Duck. And not only that, he doesn't half-ass it because he has some serious equipment. Which, you know what group of people have random hobbies which they obsess over them for hours and do them to a level that they could be considered professionals? people with autism. And this toy shows that he has a good sense of humor, which is basically legs attached to a hook, as in a... And actually the most psychotic thing about him is this cable set, but not psychotic enough to deserve this PTSD.
Something nice.
Which his sister immediately takes advantage of. That bitch. Transition.
What the hell is even that?
Okay, so I had a whole list of villains I was planning to talk about, but it seems I have slower pacing than One Piece. So if you want part 2, like the video. And for the final villain of this video, I saved the best for last. Ken from the B-movie, who is portrayed as the typical...
He was never a villain. What would you do if a bee took your girl?
Chad with a bit of an inflated ego.
When I walk out of a job interview, they're flabbergasted. They can't believe the things I say.
But since when was self-confidence a bad thing? He even says he put his 10 favorite movies on his resume, which I think they try to put in to show how self-absorbed he is. But honestly, I think makes him kind of likable. And the cherry on top is that he's voiced by the legend Patrick Warburton.
Right, poison for Cusco.
So yeah, he's the voice of Krunk. He's also the voice of Joe from Family Guy, and he has a few more cool roles.
One of the best actors of all time.
I'll show it on the screen. So here's where he's first portrayed as a villain. So him and his girlfriend are hosting some friends, and the main character of the film, Jerry Seinfeld, falls into guacamole, which one of the friends scoops him up by mistake and is about to bite into him, which Ken notices. And if he was the so-called self-absorbed jock that the movie tried to portray him as, he wouldn't have said anything as a prank. But instead, he warns his guests. And that's when Ken does something heroic. He tells his guests to stand back and tries to kill the bee himself. And the reason it's heroic is because he's deathly allergic to bees, to the point that it could kill him. And then his bitch of a fiance stops him and proceeds to say one of the stupidest things I've ever heard.
You know I'm allergic to them. This thing would kill me.
Why does his life have any less value than yours?
And then
That's
she does
insane.
something that really pisses me off
That's the thing.
and rips his brochure that he made with his own hands without a second thought.
My brochure.
Feel you, brother, I feel you. That's when she
That's
lets
actually
the
insane.
bee out the house and keeps the window open. I'm sorry, if my girlfriend, let's say, if I had one, was deathly allergic to bees and I threw a bee out the window and left the window open, I expect her not to speak to me for a month. And if Ken goes on to die here, that's just plain negligence, and she deserves jail. And guess what happens 5 minutes later? He flies straight back in and proceeds to flirt with the girlfriend, whose name is Vanessa with the last name Bloom, which kind of fits for someone who has a weird fetish for bees. Which, considering that bees have about a 7-week lifespan, the age gap is kind of ironic considering he's voiced by Jerry Seinfeld. And by the way, earlier when I mentioned Ken, the reason I didn't say his last name was because apparently he doesn't have one. He's just called Ken, which is legendary, honestly. Anyways, if Ken wasn't perfect enough, before when the girlfriend was ripping the brochure, for 2 frames you could actually see some of the skills he wrote down, and some of these are actually hilarious. One of them being chopsticks, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. How many people could confidently say that they're proficient with chopsticks?
Me? It's really not that hard. Practice makes perfect.
Also, one of the skills he put down is frozen yogurt, which I'll get back to later because it's actually very wholesome. Anyways, Vanessa has a romantic evening with the hero, the bee. And that was not a one-time thing. She carries on going on dates with this bee, including one time where she assaults a minimum wage worker because he tried to knock the bee off her shoulder. And back to the yogurt thing, turns out Vanessa and Ken have something called
still to this day, I don't understand what was wrong with her. It was actually something wrong with her.
Good night. Which, a night where you
Bubblegum yogurt?
just eat yogurt
Where's the
and
ice
chill
cream?
sounds kind of awesome. But this time, when he comes to have the yogurt night with his girlfriend, she kicks him out because she wanted to spend the evening with the bee instead.
Why is yogurt night so difficult?
She doesn't deserve you, Ken. Which all comes to a boiling point when Vanessa and Ken have a planned date night at their home. But Ken ends up being late because his car broke down and his phone ran out of battery, so he can't tell her. So Vanessa obviously gets worried and tries to figure out if he's okay. Just kidding, she actually invites the bee instead and sits him down in his place if that wasn't enough. And Ken's not stupid, he sees what the bee's doing. Which at this point, you may be thinking, why is Ken staying with this girl? She's clearly not into him anymore, and is replacing him with the bee. But since Ken is such an innocent guy and is still in love with Vanessa, he doesn't see her for the witch she is, and instead thinks that it's just the bee that begins the humiliation ritual. First, the bee makes fun of Ken's favorite sport.
So, I hear you're quite a tennis player. I'm not much of a game myself. I find the ball a little grabby.
Then Vanessa says this.
Barry was looking at your resume, and he agreed with me that eating with chopsticks isn't really a special skill.
Which shows that the bee has been there for a while, and that they sat around and made fun of his resume together, which Ken clocks right away.
You think I don't see what you're doing?
And as the bee continues to feign ignorance with an all too obvious smugness, the final straw is Vanessa saying this.
I let Barry borrow your razor for his buzz. I hope that was all right.
I'm gonna go drain the old stinger.
They're not slick, we all know what's being implied. So Ken, after holding in his anger all night, finally loses it and tries to kill the bee. Which causes Vanessa to finally break up with him by saying the most stupid thing I've ever heard.
And he happens to be the nicest bee I've met in a long time.
Long time? What are you talking about?
But this is when Ken says the first thing that may make him a villain, or at least a bit of a psycho, and claims that he doesn't like honey and prefers artificial sweetener.
I know it's got an aftertaste. I like it.
Come on, bro. This is not you.
That sounds crazy.
And so,
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds crazy.
as time passes,
Can't
Vanessa opens a flower shop together with the bee, which has Ken saying the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, that bee is living my life. Let it go, Kenny. I will take her head.
Which I would have pointed and laughed like I usually do when the villains get their horrible ending. But this time, all I could do is just feel bad for my bro Ken. And my theory is that the people that wrote these particular movies wrote it based on their life, and they're actually horrible human beings. So they don't realize that when we watch it, we realize that they were the villains all along.
Alright, it was a good video. Let's discuss what we watched and what's my take on each villain. I feel like in all honesty, all his takes were valid. Pretty valid. And yeah, all his takes were pretty valid. I'm streaming on Twitch right now, and I'm making a video at the same time. So make sure y'all go to my Twitch. It's the link in my YouTube bio. I'll see y'all in the next video.